Cruisin the Coast. We're on the beautiful Mississippi Gulf Coast. We're pleased to welcome now Jerry Henson, a regular cruising attendee. In fact, he's so regular he's been to every one. Jerry, thanks for coming on.
No problem.
All right, so it's my understanding you've been coming. You just shared with me during the break since 1996 when the thing kicked off, right?
Yeah, been to a lot of car shows before that and got hooked up with this, and I can't turn away from it.
So do you have an old car?
I've got a 37 Ford.
37?
Yeah, that's a little bit older than you.
Was that passed down in your family? How'd you come around that?
No, I traded a car for it.
What'd you trade?
Traded a 56 210 Chevy.
For a 37 Ford?
For a 37 Ford.
Okay, now how many different models vehicles did Ford make in 1937? I'm thinking there weren't but one or two, right?
No, there wasn't very many. and these modern cars, I have no idea. You can't tell one from the other at a traffic light. If an old car here pulls up at a traffic light, people be looking at them, you know.
Had a little style to them.
Yeah.
Yeah, in fact, that was a big selling feature of the vehicle, was just the lines, the curves, the style, the finish, and so forth.
Yeah.
It's changed a bit.
A little bit. By the way, that 37's not all 37. It's got a 350 transmission and air conditioning.
Air conditioning?
Oh, yeah.
Didn't have that in 37.
No, electric windows, the whole bit.
Electric windows, too?
Yeah.
Did you personally install those modifications?
No, they were on the car when I traded.
I got you. Somebody already done that.
Yeah.
So are you showing
That's
it?
what I'm into now is I'm not doing work anymore on them. I'm just, if I find one that I like, I'll get it as is, you know.
Okay. You don't want to take on a project, in other words.
Right. I've worked all my life. I'm tired of that.
I hear you. Well, you deserve it for sure. So what have you seen that's changed the most about this event other than the obvious size and scale has just expanded?
Well, yeah, and let me tell you something. All these people that come here and complain a little bit about the traffic and everything, I always say when you go to a good movie, you're going to stand in a long line.
So it's a little sacrifice, a little inconvenience of maybe traffic.
People complain about complaining.
Yeah, that's a good point. Well, I was sharing earlier when we kicked the show off. I came in last night. We're staying right across the street here at one of the hotels, and came in last night, and I noticed that folks were already lining Highway 90 on the sidewalk in their lawn chairs just to catch a glimpse of some of these vehicles as they rolled into town. Of course, they're cruising. That's why we call it Cruisin the Coast, up and down 90.
And I don't see where anybody could do any better than Woody did starting this thing up.
Yeah, it was his vision, his dream.
Yeah.
Incredible. So have you met folks through the years that you've established relationships with that have continued?
I've had plenty of friends. I was real good friends when this all started up. A guy he was a warehouser for parts for cars, and he had like 53 cars. His name was Ronald Flick. And he passed away. His son got all the cars, and he downgraded a lot of them, but every one of them was museum pieces.
Wow.
And he got me hooked on it back in the day, and it gets in your blood. You can't get away from it.
Yeah. So have you always had
I've had
an enthusiasm for cars like that?
Yeah. I guess it started, I had a 66 Corvette, my first car when I got into cars. And back in the day, those things were a dime a dozen running the street. I sold that thing a couple of years later for $1,500. I could kick myself today, but, you know, time passes on.
$1,500 for a 66 Corvette.
Yeah, convertible.
And what was the displacement of the engine in that vehicle?
That was a 327 and about a 325 horse, I guess.
Wow.
It was fast back in those days.
Well, also back in those days, the size of the engine wasn't too far off from the actual horsepower. You didn't have a lot of other stuff loading down the power.
Right.
consuming the power of the engine. So I'm assuming that was that a 4-speed?
Yeah.
Yeah.
About 90% of them were.
I wonder how many kids today learning how to drive could drive a shift with a clutch.
I'd like to have them just dial an old dial phone.
That's a good point. You can just talk to your phone and it dials for you now, right? You hadn't thought about that.
Times change, man.
They certainly do. So is there any particular time period that you would call your favorite, or any manufacturer's line of vehicles?
Well, I'm always been Ford or Chevy.
Okay.
And I guess the late 50s, I'm driving a 37. Late 50s to late 60s, that's my time frame, really.
Okay.
I love all cars. There's 3 cars here that I have never seen. There's an old Crosley station wagon. Crosley used to make radios. And there's a new, I guess a 59 Cadillac pickup truck. Guy made a Cadillac into a pickup truck, and thing's got it must have a $40,000 paint job on it. And then the other one is a Studebaker Avanti. I've seen them, plenty of them. Never seen a convertible. The guy's got one parked just a few feet way down here.
Incredible.
It is.
So one of the things that I guess you notice about these classic older vehicles is that the vast majority of them were American-made. And today on the streets, modern vehicles are
American parts, everything. The country's just going away.
All made right here in the USA too. All the factories were in those days.
Right.
Shipped
Detroit.
That's right. That was the ground zero for the automobile industry. And of course it was, I guess the 60s is when we started really seeing the dealer networks of all these manufacturers. Early 60s is when they started spreading around the country, and they started franchising dealerships, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
Selling those vehicles.
The whole automotive industry, I think, has gone downhill. They should have made cars with class to them instead of what they have running around on top of the frames now.
They're just computers riding around now,
That's
aren't
it. And telephones. People drive their telephones now.
That's a good point. And then many of them drive themselves on top of that.
Correct. I don't think I would trust one. That's just me, though.
So with respect to your 37, does it have power steering and power brakes? Did somebody install that?
No, it's got disc brakes, but it doesn't have power steering.
Okay.
But once you get it to rolling about 2 inches, it's easy to steer.
Yeah. Now, what about the turning radius? Is this one of those deals where you got to turn the wheel about 4 times to make a turn, a 90-degree turn?
A 90-degree, probably about 3 turns.
Okay.
But it'll make a U-turn out there. I did it this morning.
Yeah, you can do that.
Yeah.
What about availability of parts for those
You can get a part for any car, just about. Yeah.
Even that old?
Even that old.
So there's still parts manufacturers that make parts?
Yeah, there's people that just deal in old car parts.
Sure. Well, the way all these vehicles have been preserved and just as...
Yeah, they get them somewhere.
Yeah, they got to get them somewhere. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to drive them here.
Yeah.
And so do you take your vehicle out on the roads a lot, or do you pretty much store
I go to car shows, and I haven't been to a real far car show. I used to go to like Pate, Texas, Crescent, and I'd go to Arkansas.
Okay.
Pettigene Mountain has a big car show up there, and I drive all over in whatever I had at the time. I've only had this car about a year.
A year, okay.
Yeah.
So how did you find it?
There was a guy just walking around, and at a car show I went to, it was in, I'm trying to think of where it was.
You found it at a car show?
In Alabama.
Okay.
It was in Alabama, and I went over there, and he was walking around and had a sign on his car, and I had mine for sale, and we met up later on by the battleship over there.
Yeah.
Battleship, Missouri.
Yeah.
And a week or two later, and
Made a deal.
made a deal.
How about that? Was he sad to let it go?
He was, and I was.
I hear you. Jerry.
Well, that 56 was nice, but it had a 383 stroker engine in it, and you know,
Motor with a saddle on it.
yeah.
Jerry Henson, being a Cruisin the Coast attendee since the inception of the event, has been our guest. Thanks for coming on, Jerry.
I wasn't like that in high school. I skipped
you.
all the time, but I'm
you.
not skipping this.
We're coming right back with Greg Cronin, member of the Board of Commissioners for Coastal Mississippi Tourism. Stay with us.